the NFL doesn't sleep, so neither will I. Welcome to the Pump Fake. Jarrett Bailey with you as always. And yeah, the breaking news from Adam Schefter is that L'Jarius Snead has been traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Tennessee Titans. And I'm realizing that we're like right in the middle of this that I've misspelled Snead's last name. So that shows how awake I am for this. But they trade, the Chiefs do, L'Jarius Snead to the Tennessee Titans for a 2025 third round pick and a seventh round pick swap in the 2024 NFL draft, which is much less than he was expected to go for. So now the Tennessee Titans have a cornerback duo of Chidobe Awuzie, who joins Brian Callahan coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals, and L'Jarius Snead, which is incredibly fun. And if you look at, if we pull it up right now, the moves that the Titans have made so far this offseason: Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry at center, Chidobe Awuzie, Tony Pollard, Kenneth Murray, Mason Rudolph as the backup quarterback, Sebastian Joseph Day at defensive tackle. I mean, these aren't nothing moves. They're far from it. And I don't know what it means necessarily for the Titans and how they'll perform in terms of like record-wise in 2024. And we still have the draft to go, obviously. But it shows that they're willing to take some swings and that they're going to put Will Levis in a position to succeed, at least to the best of their ability. They go out and they get a Calvin Ridley. That's a team that, needed another receiver. So now you got Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, as well as Chig Okonkwo, and now Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard in the backfield. They sign a center in Lloyd Cushenberry. And now trading for L'Jarius Snead from the Kansas City Chiefs to pair with Chidobe Awuzie. And not only does it say like, hey, we're trying our best, to build around Will Levis and take advantage of the fact that we have a quarterback on a rookie contract. But also, look around the rest of, the division. It's, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson. They know that, this somehow quickly became, a quarterback-driven division. And if you're going to win those games, you're going to have some guys make some splash plays against these quarterbacks. And now the Titans are in a position where they have, on paper, what could end up being, one of the 3 to 5 best cornerback duos in football. And that's something like that is what you need when you're going to be facing Trevor Lawrence twice a year, CJ Stroud twice a year, Anthony Richardson twice a year. Not to mention the fact if you want to go far, if the Will Levis project does work out and you want to go far in the playoffs, well, you're going to be facing Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and the names that we've already mentioned. So this is a great move for the Titans, man. I applaud their aggressiveness. I applaud the fact that they are just going all in here, and they gave up hardly anything. Obviously, they're going to have to pay Snead, but the fact that they gave up next to nothing, I understand the third round pick isn't nothing, but the fact that it's coming in next year's draft, that's certainly something. I would like to see what other teams were offering for Snead if that's what he eventually went for, too. As for the Chiefs side of this, that now makes secondary one of their biggest needs because Mike Edwards, their safety, just signed with Buffalo. And now L'Jarius Snead traded to the Tennessee Titans. So they have a need at cornerback opposite of Trent McDuffie. And now also a need at safety. And they did sign Hollywood Brown to go along with Rashee Rice on offense. So we'll see how much which one they value more with their first round pick. Do they go with somebody in the secondary, or do they go with another receiver to complement the offense? And that'll be something to keep an eye on with Kansas City. And with the Chiefs, once they re-signed Chris Jones, it felt like, kind of the writing was on the wall for Snead. And understandably so. Like, eventually, when, the check comes due, you got to pick and choose which guys you're going to keep around. And keeping 95 around, while you don't want to lose L'Jarius Snead, if you have to pick, that's the guy that you're picking to keep. And that's understandable. He's maybe the most disruptive force in the NFL now that Aaron Donald has retired. So keeping him around was obviously imperative for the Chiefs, Brett Veach and Andy Reid and company wanting to keep Chris Jones in the building. And that, that basically meant, okay, L'Jarius Snead's probably going to be gone. Then again, these things, when you look at how well the Chiefs have drafted, that's something that's flown so under the radar because of, how great Mahomes has been and how great Andy Reid has been. But you look at their defense, Snead, McDuffie, those are both, homegrown guys. And a ton of guys on the Nick Bolton as well. A bunch of guys on this team that they just nailed draft picks. The offensive line, while there was, a few outside signings, they drafted Trey Smith in the 6th round. They drafted Creed Humphrey. And, eventually, the check's going to come due. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to keep everybody. No matter how great they are and how much you'd like to keep all this great talent together, you're not going to be able to do it. And they knew they weren't going to be able to keep L'Jarius Snead, so they send him to Tennessee. Again, I'm surprised that it was for so little. But now that presents a need for the Chiefs at cornerback, and they also have a need now at safety with Mike Edwards going to Buffalo. But the Tennessee Titans, man, they're going for it. They say, hey, we got Will Levis on a rookie contract. We're just going to try to build the best possible team we can to give him a chance to succeed. And if he turns out to be a good quarterback, then that's great. We've got great pieces around a good quarterback that we don't have to pay for a couple more years, and we can really just try to make a run at this thing. And if you're the Chiefs, yeah, it sucks to lose Snead. You're 3-time Super Bowl champions. You're looking to become the first team in NFL history to win 3 in a row. No, again, losing Snead, it's not ideal, and he's not somebody that you can just replace with somebody. You can't just plug in anybody and make them become L'Jarius Snead. But at the same time, with the Chiefs, as long as they have Andy Reid and as long as they got 15, they're still going to be, looked at as that team that is the team to beat until it's proven that they aren't. And even if they don't, three-peat, nobody's going to go into 2025 being like, oh, okay, don't have to worry about the Chiefs anymore, So, yeah, having to trade Snead, it's not ideal. But, again, this is what happens when, eventually, when you have to pay all these guys, you're not going to be able to keep all of them. And they chose Chris Jones, which is completely understandable. And they still have a very good cornerback in Trent McDuffie, who's one of the best corners in the league and honestly could have won MVP of the Super Bowl. So they have a ton of talent still on that side of the ball. And cornerback will certainly be a focal point in the draft next month for them. But by no means is this, automatically just saying, okay, the Chiefs are done. No. When you draft well and you're a great team, eventually the bill's going to come due and you got to pick and choose who you're going to keep. And look, man, they're 3-time Super Bowl champions. I'm pretty sure, has Snead been there for all of them? I don't know how long L'Jarius Snead's been in the league. Let me see when he was drafted. So L'Jarius Snead was drafted in 2020. Okay, so he's been there for the last two. He wasn't there for the first one. But regardless, no, he's played in three. You know, he's there as a rookie. And has been one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL over the past 2 to 3 years. And now he goes to Tennessee to join Chidobe Awuzie. I'm excited to watch the Titans this year, which is something I haven't said in a very long time. Because, again, I applaud them for just being like, look, we got a quarterback on a rookie deal. We might as well try and just go balls to the wall with the money that we have. You know, that's why you bring in a Chidobe Awuzie, you sign a Tony Pollard to complement Tyjae Spears, you sign a Calvin Ridley, you sign a Lloyd Cushenberry at center, and you trade for a L'Jarius Snead. You bring in as many proven guys as you can in that situation. And that's what they're doing. And I applaud them for it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of that for the Tennessee Titans. But yeah, now luckily for the Chiefs, though, I mean, this is a very deep cornerback class. So if they do decide to go corner at 32 to replace that production from Snead, they're going to have a lot of guys to choose from. Or even if they'd want to move up a few spots, if they have a guy that they really like, you know, if they really like a Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, they really like a Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, somebody, you know, of that caliber, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to be projected to go between like 15 and 32, or in the early second round, that they'll be able to, if they want to move up and get them, they can, or they can try. If they stay put, there's still going to be a lot of guys there that they can take. And it's a deep defensive back class. So, and for as good as they've drafted, especially in the secondary, where they drafted both McDuffie and Snead and put together the best cornerback duo in football in-house. You know how hard that is to do, to just draft two of the 10 best corners in football within a year of each other? Because that's what Brett Veach did. Pretty impressive. So, tip of the cap to you, Brett Veach. So they've got a great track record of being able to go out and draft good defensive back talent, which is a good thing to have after having to trade away L'Jarius Snead. And again, once they signed Chris Jones, it was very evident that, okay, Snead's going to be gone. It's just a matter of what are they going to get. And again, I thought that they would have got more than what they got, you know, a third round pick in next year's draft and then a pick swap of 7th round picks in this year's draft. That feels very minuscule for a guy of Snead's caliber. But again, you know, we're seeing around the league this offseason that if you're trading somebody, you're not going to get a king's ransom in return. We saw Jerry Jeudy went for a pair of day 3 picks. Where Deontay Johnson's a very good receiver, but as is Jerry Jeudy, and L'Jarius needs a really good corner. But the league's telling us, hey, we'd rather just draft our own guys. Now, if we can go get somebody, we can, but don't expect us to, you know, give a second round pick or, you know, a first round pick. And more, that's what the league's kind of telling you about the trade market right now. Now, I mean, we've got guys like, you know, if a Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins gets traded, then that'll really tell you what the market looks like. You know, those guys are, you know, Higgins is, everybody's saying, okay, Carolina can give the 33rd pick for T. Higgins. And if Brandon Ayuk gets traded, a lot of people are expecting him to go for a first round pick and, you know, maybe more than that. First round pick and a player, or first round pick and a third round pick, similar to what the AJ Brown trade was a few years ago. But it's remarkable how much the market has changed. And again, Jerry Jeudy and Deontay Johnson aren't as good as AJ Brown, and I wasn't expecting either of them to go for first round picks or a package similar to AJ Brown. But the fact that they both went for day 3 picks, that tells you how the overall trade market is around the NFL right now, where organizations would rather just, especially in this class where it's a very wide receiver deep class, it's a very defensive back deep class, where organizations would rather just be like, why would we, give you premium draft capital for a guy that we're going to have to pay right away when we can just draft somebody who we think can be just as good, if not better, and we don't have to pay him for 4 years. So, that's why we're not seeing Jerry Jeudy go for premium draft capital, even though as soon as he gets traded, the Browns pay him a ton of money. And that's why Deontay Johnson didn't go for all that much, even though he's a talented receiver. The Steelers knew, hey, look, the rest of the league knew, hey, the Steelers aren't going to extend him. They have no leverage here if they want to trade him. So, we'll give him a 6th round pick, and we'll give him, a position of need. But even then, it's not as if Dante Jackson, whom they got in return, it's not as if he's a star. So, I look at the trade for Snead and I say, oh man, they could have got more. But again, it's a very deep cornerback class. And for teams that could be on the brink but might not have the money to do a deal, they're kind of left with their hands tied saying, hey, we'd love to have a L'Jarius Snead, but we know he's going to garner a ton of money. And we don't know if we want to front that bill, when we can go out and we can draft somebody who we think can be as good or close to as good as him, and we don't got to worry about paying him for a long time. So I get, both sides of this right now. And look, the Tennessee Titans are a nice winner in this, where they're a team who's trying to rebound from a couple down years and starting a new regime and a new era with Brian Callahan as head coach. And they're living in a post-Mike Vrabel, post-Derrick Henry, post-Ryan Tannehill, post-AJ Brown for a few years. That entire core of guys that went to the AFC title game in 2019 is gone. So this is very much a new era of Titans football, and they're showing that they're going for it. And they're not going to be afraid to, make these types of moves. And if I'm a Titans fan, I'm excited about that, especially in a division where, oh man, CJ Stroud is already, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence is a very good quarterback in the NFL. Anthony Richardson, yeah, he got hurt and he didn't play a ton last year, but in the month that we saw him, he looked like a unicorn. And the Colts still almost got to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. So imagine what they're going to do with Anthony Richardson. The Titans saw that and said, we got to get some guys on the defensive side of the ball who are 2 of the best in the league at keeping quarterbacks in check. And Chidobe Awuzie and L'Jarius Snead are 2 of the best corners in the league. And now they're both in Tennessee. And I applaud the aggressiveness. And again, it's the same old story in the AFC. For the Titans, like, even if they do surprise people and get into the playoffs, well, then you're going to have to face the Chiefs. You're going to have to face the Bills. You're going to have to face the Bengals. You're going to have to face all these top-tier teams with top-tier quarterbacks. And if you don't have the defensive back talent to defend the guys that they're throwing to, you're going to get ran out of the building. But if the Titans, do sneak into the playoffs and they play, the Bengals, okay, well, L'Jarius Snead and Chidobe Awuzie, former Bengal, well, they're going to be on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and may the best duo win. If you play Kansas City, okay, heavy underdogs, but, we've got a pair of corners, one that was just in Kansas City who we're going to put on Rashee Rice, another who is very good that we're going to put on Hollywood Brown. Beat us. So I applaud the aggressiveness and I applaud the awareness of just knowing, hey, eventually we're going to play really good teams with really good quarterbacks and really good receivers that we got to try to slow down. Which means, hey, let's go get some corners. Let's build around this rookie quarterback. Let's take advantage of the fact that we have a quarterback on a rookie contract and that we have a ton of money, and throw it at guys that we know can make us better. People will look at the Calvin Ridley deal and be like, oh man, they really overpaid Calvin Ridley. Well, right now they can afford to overpay Calvin Ridley. They ain't paying a quarterback. So if you can afford to, outbid some teams by overpaying a little bit, you do it in that situation. Because Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins as your top two receivers, I mean, that's pretty good help. Even though DeAndre Hopkins is no longer, prime DeAndre Hopkins, he's still a very capable 1B to Calvin Ridley's 1A. And also the fact that you poach him away from the division rival Jaguars, I'm sure that felt good too. So I applaud what the Titans are doing. And again, by no means is this, automatically like, okay, well, the Chiefs are done. they're going to be fine. And if anything, Brett Veach has shown that they are incredibly capable at replenishing talent through the draft, because that's what they've done since they've had Mahomes. It was, okay, we're going to draft L'Jarius Snead, we're going to draft Trent McDuffie, we're going to draft Nick Bolton, we're going to draft Creed Humphrey, we're going to draft Trey Smith, we're going to draft Isaiah Pacheco, going to draft Rashee Rice. Like, they've been so good at bringing in guys through the draft and building homegrown stars. So I've got all the faith in the world in them to, replenish that need at cornerback and bring in some help at safety as well. Look, whoever they draft, are they going to be immediately as good as L'Jarius Snead? It's highly unlikely. But again, with their track record, it's not out of the question that whomever they draft will eventually be as good as L'Jarius Snead, given, a year or two. And even if he doesn't quite reach that height, as long as he's good, I mean, that's still a win. And if you can consistently, when you have to move on from guys, if you can consistently replenish that talent, I mean, that makes you feel good as an organization. It gives fans confidence in you as a front office going forward, where, if they know, okay, yeah, it's not going to be easy saying goodbye to this guy, but this front office is very good at drafting, and we have faith that they'll be able to make up for it. I mean, that builds so much goodwill with the fan base, and 3 Super Bowls in 5 years is as much goodwill as you can instill in a fan base, because they've done a very good job of building this team, largely within itself. They haven't gone outside the organization for very many pieces. This has been a largely in-house operation that they've built. And obviously having the greatest quarterback that I've ever seen helps that. But all of the other pieces they don't win the Super Bowl this past year without that great defense that is built largely off of homegrown stars. So I have all the faith in the world that Brett Veach and company will figure it out. I have all the faith in the world that the Chiefs are going to be absolutely fine. They're still going to win that division rather handedly, because everybody else in the division isn't good. I mean, just look around the rest of the AFC West. And I think that's another thing with the Chiefs is like they're looking at, Jarrett Stidham for the Broncos. Oh, yeah. We're really shaking in our boots about that. Oh, Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders. Okay. Yeah, we'll be sure to we'll be sure to keep an eye on that. Obviously, Justin Herbert's great, but Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator, and who's his number one right now? Josh Palmer. All right. Yeah, we're real worried about the Chargers. So I think that's one thing that the Chiefs just recognize as well, is that they're still very handedly the best team in that division by a country mile. And so they can afford to make these kind of moves, still win the division, and they know that their season doesn't start until January. And while that's probably not what many people would like to hear, it's the same thing that it was for Brady's Patriots, Peyton's Colts. Like, the regular season for them was more just a dress rehearsal and figuring things out leading up to January and getting things as close to perfect as they possibly could, because they knew that they would be there. Because they both played in largely bad divisions with two of the best quarterbacks of all time. Like, they knew that this was a 17-week dress rehearsal to, figure things out, get right, and get ready for January. That's what the Chiefs have now. It's all right, yeah. By the time they get to week 8, there's like, oh my God, can we just please get to January? I don't care that we have to go play the Broncos. We'll go and we'll beat them. But if we sleepwalk and win 20-9, I don't want to hear any complaining about it, because we can't get geared up to go to Mile High in October because it doesn't matter. So that's very much another factor when it comes to moves like this for Kansas City, is that they can afford to do it because they're still very much by and large the best team in their division, because their division isn't good. So the Chiefs are still going to win the AFC West. They're still probably going to be one of the final 4 teams in the NFL. It won't shock anybody in the world if they get back to the Super Bowl, and it really won't shock anybody if they become the first team in NFL history to three-peat. But they're fine. And again, full confidence in Brett Veach and the front office and everybody on the coaching staff to bring in a new defensive back, bring in a new cornerback to fill that hole that L'Jarius Snead leaves opposite of Trent McDuffie, and do what they already did, which is build homegrown stars at cornerback with McDuffie and Snead, and they just got to do it again with an early draft pick. I mean, they're going to take a guy within the first 2 rounds. It's just a matter of, okay, they're going to go receiver then corner, or corner then receiver. Because they've shown time and again at several positions that whoever they take, they're going to turn them into, at minimum, a really good role player, and at maximum, one of the best at their positions in the NFL. Whether it be McDuffie or Snead or Nick Bolton or George Karlaftis or Creed Humphrey. Rashee Rice, who became incredibly valuable and the only receiver really worth a damn on that roster by the time the year was done. Isaiah Pacheco, who they took in the 7th round and got incredible production out of. Like, this team always finds a way to get something out of their draft picks, whether it be just, a nice role player or a superstar. I have full faith that they'll find a guy that will fill the shoes of L'Jarius Snead rather nicely. Whoever that may be, and whenever it may be, whether it be in the 1st round, 2nd round, I do think it'll come in one of those rounds, so that just makes sense. But Kansas City, man, they're completely fine. This is a good move for both sides, because again, the Chiefs knew that they weren't going to be able to extend Snead, so they trade him. Again, not for as much as I thought that they would have got for him, but that's just how the cookie crumbles, especially in today's trade market. And they'll be able to draft a guy to try to replenish what Snead left behind. And for the Titans, they're trying to build as strong a team as they can while they have a quarterback on a rookie deal. So they're going about it the right way. I think the Chiefs are going about this the right way by paying Chris Jones and then bringing in whomever else they'll bring in the secondary. I like the moves. I like the move for both teams. I like it a lot. And I have full confidence that the Chiefs are going to be fine. And I think the Titans are going to be a fun watch this season, which, again, haven't been able to say that for a very long time. And we'll see with Will Levis. We know how big of an arm he has, but last year it was very much, okay, bombs away or screen pass, bubble screen. There was very little in between for Will Levis last year. So hopefully Brian Callahan can kind of channel that for him. But at the very least, the Titans are now very interesting, which we haven't been able to say that for quite a while now. In this first year, post-Vrabel, post-Derrick Henry, post-Ryan Tannehill, all those guys that helped lead them to the AFC Championship game in 2019 that are now all gone. This is year 1 of a real new era for the Titans, and they're really going for it. And that's exciting. Exciting for their fans. And for the Chiefs, they'll still be right in the thick of things. So, exciting times. Again, the NFL never sleeps. L'Jarius Snead traded to the Tennessee Titans. Appreciate everybody for tuning into this episode of The Pump Fake. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do all that YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you can. If you're listening to this wherever you get your podcast, as always, appreciate you listening and making me a part of your day, afternoon, night, morning, wherever and whenever you're listening. Very much appreciate that. We'll be back in a few days to talk about overall free agency moves. Whomever that will be with, whether it be, all the familiar faces from the show, whether it be JP Acosta, Mike Tanier, Doug Farrar, Matt Verderam, one of those guys will be joining me next week to break down all of the big free agent moves. Go read my post free agency power rankings over on USA Today. Those are up right now. Hell, the Titans would certainly have to move up from where they are right now. There's a little hint of where I put them. But yeah, they are now very exciting. But regardless, go read that on USA Today, as well as all the Steelers coverage at Behind the Steel Curtain. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Pump Fake, where again, we'll be back in just a few short days to recap the meat and potatoes of free agency and the trades and everything that happened. And really just break down the best moves, the worst moves, who got better, who got worse. It'll be a fun time. Back here in a few days on the Pump Bank. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Jarrett Bailey, as always. See you in a few days.